When Tim Cook finally steps down as CEO of Apple, he's not exactly handing over the keys to a pristine kingdom. No, he's leaving behind a company that is fractured, a little confused, and you could even argue fundamentally broken.
And to really get why, you have to look at the crisis that's unfolding at the very top. The actual human talent, the institutional knowledge of the people who built modern Apple, well, it's evaporating. So the next CEO isn't going to walk into the most powerful war room in tech. They're going to be walking into a ghost town.
I mean, the scale of this loss is just staggering. We're talking about Jeff Williams, a key player from the Steve Jobs era, and the guy everyone thought was Cook's heir apparent. Luca Maestri, the CFO, the heads of AI and policy. And maybe the biggest blow of all, Alan Dye, the VP of Human Interface Design, who literally shaped the look and feel of iOS. He didn't just quit, he left to go work at Meta. This is not just a changing of the guard, folks. It's a mass exodus.
Now, to really grasp the gravity of what's happening now, we have to acknowledge the man at the center of it all. We need to look at Tim Cook's incredible and in so many ways unparalleled success as CEO.
Think about this. When Tim Cook took over from Steve Jobs back in 2011, Apple was worth around $350 billion. A massive company, for sure. But today, it's flirting with a $4 trillion valuation. That is trillion with a T. He didn't just steer the ship. He turned it into a financial Death Star.
Let me put it simply. That's a 1,000% increase in valuation. A truly mind-blowing financial accomplishment, no matter how you look at it.
Look, Steve Jobs is a legend, a visionary. But if you're talking strictly about the role of a CEO, growing a company, managing a global supply chain, and generating just astronomical returns, you can make a very, very strong argument that Tim Cook has actually been the better one.
But somewhere along the way, something shifted. The man who built this empire, it's like he kind of clocked out, changing his focus from innovation to just preservation. And that's when Tim Cook, the CEO, became Tim Cook, the politician.
This quote from the source material just perfectly captures that change in the air at Cupertino. That rebellious, creative ethos of think different was being replaced by something far more calculated and corporate.
When the Trump administration announced tariffs that threatened to just hammer tech companies, Cook played this incredible high-stakes political game. Through dinners, donations, and direct diplomacy with the White House, he became a world-class diplomat, which is something Steve Jobs never was. And you know what? It worked. Apple secured the tariff exemptions it needed to keep its profit margins fat, while all its competitors were getting squeezed.
So, while all that corporate diplomacy was a massive financial success, it absolutely came at a cost. It left a permanent mark on the company's identity and on the very legacy Tim Cook had spent over a decade building. So, with the kingdom in turmoil and the old guard gone, who's left to inherit the throne? I mean, who could possibly step into this role?
Apple, of course, hasn't made some big official announcement. That's not how they roll. But if you look closely at the evidence, at the clues they're dropping, the succession plan is becoming crystal clear.
The man stepping up is John Ternus, and you've probably been seeing more and more of him lately. Apple's been giving him more responsibility, trusting him to deliver key product presentations all by himself. It's a classic move, right? Warm the public up to a new leader, make him a familiar face before he takes the top job.
So who is this guy? Well, here's the story that might make you a fan. For years, Apple's design was totally dominated by Johnny Ive's philosophy of form over function. Products got thinner and sleeker, but often at the expense of usability. Just think of all those useful ports that just disappeared. Well, the only person inside Apple who was consistently pushing back on that idea was John Ternus. He fought for function first.
And this is really his defining moment. He is the reason you have an HDMI port and an SD card slot back in your MacBook Pro. The second he had the power to fix what so many of us saw as a huge design mistake, he did it. He fought for the user, and he won.
So Ternus is clearly qualified. He gets the hardware, and he gets the user. But the problem is, he's not inheriting the pristine company that Tim Cook took over. He's inheriting a tarnished crown.
The challenges he's facing are immense. That inner circle of legends we just talked about, it's gone. He's facing a massive legal war with the US government that is just getting started. And he's being handed a company with a fractured culture and a legacy that, some would argue, was sold off piece by piece just to protect a stock price.
Make no mistake, John Ternus is probably the most qualified person on the planet to build the next great piece of Apple hardware. His technical skill isn't in question, but building a great product is no longer Apple's biggest problem.
And that leaves us with the real question, the one that's going to define the entire next chapter of Apple. The hardware is one thing, but can John Ternus rebuild the soul of a company that Tim Cook may have already cashed out?